3. Ah.
The vibe.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to a very special puritanical. Is that the right word? I don't even know what that word means. Episode of
Actually
Small
more
Town.
satanical.
Maybe. Small Town Failing Podcast. I am your host, Joe. Joined this episode by, and they were on the Easter Under Wraps episode, which I think may be like a year and a half old at this point, but Hollie and Sarah from the Vanderpump Rules Party podcast, which I am so excited that you both kind of reached out as, I forget what the movie was that popped up.
Nightmare Pageant Moms.
Which sounds, do you think like they just come up with the name and then like just let's go with that and we'll kind of figure it out from there.
For sure.
But yes, Hollie and Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. I know we've kind of pinged back and forth for a while, and what a movie we picked for this.
Movie. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
So what we're discussing tonight is a new Lifetime movie, Amish Stud, the Eli Weaver Story, which is Lifetime kind of tags it as they're like ripped from the headlines or something along those lines. Like, so this is based on a true story, and we'll kind of get into better things. But I guess, were either of you aware of this? Like, I knew nothing about this Eli Weaver person before like this movie popped up.
No, but there's a lot of like Amish murder movies on Lifetime, and yeah, this seems, I mean, I guess it's your typical story, husband kills wife, so I can understand why we didn't see the headlines, I suppose.
It's interesting because, I think so. This premiered last Saturday, and like as I was kind of poking around looking, there was like 5 or 6 Amish movies before this one. Like I assume is like some sort of build up to, here's what we're doing. But I believe this was the only one that's based on a true story.
Yeah, I feel like I've been like focusing on Hallmark only. I haven't watched Lifetime in a while, so this was a big shock to me, the difference between the networks and just whole thing. I was like it was a little, I don't not like a little raunchier than Hallmark.
Jarring, yeah.
Well, there's no happy ending, but did you feel comforted that the lead actor Eli was a Hallmark actor?
Yes, like he's been in a bunch, and then I don't know if either of you watched what's that show on Apple TV now with Seth Rogen. I think it just wrapped up, but like he's one of the main characters in that too. Like, as soon as he came on, I recognized him, but not with like the Amish beard. Yeah. So I guess, what is kind of your experience with Lifetime movie? I mean, Hollie, I know you kind of watch more of like the Hallmarky stuff. Sarah, do you get into the Lifetime, or do you venture into that?
I do. I just don't like the cheesy fictional ones. I like the ones like this that are based on true stories. Like they did a rip from the headlines with Chris Watts and other ones. I mean, those are kind of sad ones. And then they do campy ones, like I said, in the 90s, where it's like Tori Spelling or something, where it's a true story, but they may, it's just real. It's kind of campy.
Yeah.
So I like anything that's based on a true story. And then sometimes, there's some fictional ones, as long as they're, like Psycho Killer Assistant or something like that. But when they're just real like cheesy love stories where they do like a mini series, and it's...
I love the cheesy and the campy. Like, give me that all day.
Well, then I'll go to Hallmark for that. And so I do that. Just I do it over the holidays. I do it if I feel homesick.
I will say Lifetime, and Hollie, maybe you've seen this too, but Lifetime does their own Hallmark type movies.
For Christmas,
exactly. And Leslie, my wife, and I watch a lot of the Christmas ones because they are, and I've used this analogy a lot, like they're more like the Cinemax version of like Hallmark movies, where it's like, by no means are they showing like sex scenes or anything, but there's definitely like, ooh, cleavage, like there's
they're doing more like same sex than Hallmark was doing.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, different
Yeah.
cultures and races. But Hallmark's coming around to that too.
Hallmark is,
Yeah.
they're coming around, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely been kind of a changing of the guards in the last 5 years where, and I think a lot of it too is like a reaction to Great American Family and like that whole thing going
Oh
on.
yeah.
I think they're just like, absolutely, we're going to put guys making out, take that, Candace Cameron,
Yeah.
like, um, but the ones that, so, and we kind of talked about it before we hit record. I always have like a little bit of a moral, like, oh, what am I doing here? Because like this movie is based on a true story. And I did like a little reading, and it does sound like it follows the storyline fairly well. But on the flip side, it is like there's some super goofy scenes and like a lot of really weird stuff going on. So like you feel weird kind of laughing at it when you realize like, oh no, like this happened, like someone was murdered. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just try and
They
like forget
threw in
that.
some camp though, but they have like
Oh, for sure.
Garcia from Criminal Minds. She plays that quirky baby girl character. She was here as this taxi lady, but like they still showed her as kind of like a little quirky, or even when they walked into the shed and like
Mhm.
I don't know, it was like they still made it a little campy
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
themselves.
But more important topic, Vanderpump Rules and Scandival and just everything going on. Like I talked about it on the next episode. Like I love the fact that you're both out there kind of in the weeds and in the thick of it. Like I think you mentioned, are you going to Jax's like bar opening, or is that sometime this week, or like
His show premiere of House of Villains, and then
oh, right.
originally I heard the premiere was going to be at his new bar, but I don't think it's open yet. So this is
Mm.
that, and then we will go to his bar when it's officially open.
Yeah, we're
So-
so excited.
And what's the deal with the sandwich place? Like I saw some post where like it's not open anymore, or like it never was.
It never was. They had to redo some things because of city permits,
Mhm.
trying to kind of re-gentrify that street. But now it's just gone quiet. Like we saw them make the changes they were ordered to do, and now it's just been like sitting there. So I
Bummer.
don't know. It's a lot of rent to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I know the answer, but where are the both of you as far as Scandival and like everything that's happening?
Go ahead, Sarah.
I mean, it gets tiring and old, and then there's new
Yeah.
stuff that comes up. Like Sandoval just launched his podcast, so we have to, of course, go hear what else he has to say.
Yeah.
I think all of us wanted to hear from Raquel, and then it kind of was disappointing because she was kind of led, and
Mhm.
we didn't get to hear the stuff I think we really wanted to hear that someone that knows the story would have asked. So everyone's still left longing a little bit for Raquel, but not as
Yeah.
much as they once were because they were kind of turned off by the Bethany podcast she did. So there's still some unanswered
Mhm.
stuff there, but it's kind of too late. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna have to wait for season 11.
Yeah,
and
I feel like we're excited to see how on earth are they going to keep all of us engaged in this
Yeah.
for season 11 like that. So I'm waiting for that trailer to drop, because following what they filmed this season, I'm like I hope they have something up their sleeve.
Yeah, because I think it was just after, was it season 9 when you two were on last, and like I think I told you like Leslie and I didn't even finish it. Like it was really
Yeah.
just kind of like dragging on a bit because they didn't have much of a storyline.
Mm-mm.
And then season 10 I thought started really well, and then all of a sudden all this stuff hit, and it was like
Yeah,
literally it was like the biggest thing going on in the country at the time, which
we were so tired.
you're right, like I can imagine. And
Fingers hurt.
now I am curious, like if there's just going to be burnout, and because at a certain point, like I think Ariana could have run for president and like would have won, like, and now,
Yeah.
there's Dancing with the Stars. There's, I've seen posts about the sandwich shop being just like a front to sell t-shirts. And like, I just wonder at what point, and I think we all know, like the Bravo fans and like myself included, kind of get burnt out, and then at a certain point we
Yeah.
turn, right?
They
Like,
are turning for sure. They're getting sick of it. And then also they're feeling burned in the sense that, okay, you as the cast also got us all riled up.
mhm.
You did the reunion where you're pointing fingers and name calling and got the fans riled up, riled up. They're telling us don't go to shows, throw tomatoes at Sandoval. They're inciting us to do what we're all doing
Yep.
collectively in varying ways and extremes, but they're just as much as part of the whatever it is going on. But what's frustrating is now you'll see, oh, they're now all getting along, or they've forgiven him, they moved on, and the fans are like, what did we do all this for?
How dare
Like,
you? Yeah.
and not that you shouldn't move on and forgive. And that's where like, well, you just have to wait and see. And I'm like, of course, we have to wait and see how it happened. But I'm not seeing the same for Raquel. There seems to be this
Mhm.
forgiveness for Sandoval, but not for Raquel, you know. So
Yep.
that's where it's a little frustrating. And not taking sides on Raquel or Sandoval, they both totally, at fault here. It's just you how come you forgive one and not the other? And
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I see fans getting frustrated at that. Lala caving, rumors that Sheena's caving, or Sheena was just at a music festival with Sandoval, and people are like,
How dare you? Yeah. I gotta
whatever.
say, Lala is the most obnoxious in all this. I
I
like just
agree.
her and like some of the hypocrisy of the stuff she's saying. Like, obviously, two very different situations, but like, I do feel like her in particular, I don't know how much she cared about the situation so much as just, oh, this is something I can latch onto. And like, now, I'm going to do my podcast and like make it a thing. Like, I don't know. It always feels very forced
Yeah.
with her, to me at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
no,
a barking dog.
mhm.
Hmm.
Just and it's like you have the least role here and you're the loudest.
Yep, for
So,
sure. Yeah.
sorry, Holly,
Um,
you were gonna say
Oh no,
something.
it's okay.
um, all right. So, do we want to jump into this masterpiece,
Sure.
if you will? So, Amish Stud, the Eli Weaver story, directed by Stacey Harding, who's actually directed a bunch of Hallmark movies that we've done for this show. And Holly, maybe you've seen some of these, but and I had them all in front of me, which now I'm just, completely. But she comes from more of what seems like a Hallmark world. Um, which I found interesting because this was, I think, kind of the first delve into some of the more lifetimey stabby type stuff. So A Christmas Aunt she did, I think, last year, and a handful of others. So I guess the first question, what is your being from the West Coast? I don't believe there's a big Amish presence out there. How familiar you are, like both of you, with the Amish community and all that sort of thing?
I've been into it for a while. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
Sarah is into it, and Sarah's been around it a little bit more than me. I have like
Yeah.
no experience with it, but I was raised like very strict Christian, so
Hmm.
I can relate to some of the things that I was seeing and stuff. But it's like on my bucket list to like witness all this. Like I want,
Witness.
yeah, I want to go and like see like a little buggy going down the street or something, or
Yeah.
like buy the furniture or something.
Yeah, you can get the furniture. I'm sure there's somewhere in California you can go to a furniture store. I'm sure.
Are
Yeah.
there, I mean, not that you need to know everything, but is there Amish in California anywhere? I grew up in upstate New York and we used to go to Pennsylvania a lot. So I
Yes.
definitely know like the
Yes.
Pennsylvania Dutch and like that area. Like that's kind of we used to go to like Hershey Park and things like that's my exposure. And then now that we've moved to the Midwest, I know in Ohio there's a big presence.
Yeah, in Kentucky. So
Yeah.
I knew this, like, I would go to this chiropractic clinic in South Dakota. It's this famous clinic that's been around for a couple hundred years. And the Amish go there because of the way they do things. It's not like modern medicine. And even they sit on a stool and, you keep your clothes on. And, so it's something that they allow.
Mhm.
So they travel from everywhere. So I'd go to this clinic and look around and everyone is in their gear. And I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, I've never been into like 90% of the clinic. And I'm like, well, how are they? I'm like, it's like the middle of South Dakota. There's population 20. And my mom said they take a big bus or, big caravans. I'm like, but they're not allowed to be in cars. She's like, no, they can accept a ride.
They just can't
Like
drive,
the
right?
taxi lady in this movie, they just can't own a car, drive a car. I'm like, well, how do they make appointments? Do they mail a letter and say, do you have an appointment in 6 months? Like, you make these appointments like 6 months in advance.
Wow.
But no, they have someone call for them so they can use, it's a little hypocritical. They can take advantage of all the modern technology. They
They
just
just
can't
can't use it. Yeah.
personally do it. But in the clinic, there would also be a lot of Mennonites too, so you could tell the difference because they might have like the same hairdo or a bonnet, but then they'd wear
Hmm.
jeans and a
Right.
normal shirt. But you could tell still. Um, yeah. So between that and they had them where I grew up too in Minnesota, more in rural areas. But my real awakening was like at the mid 2000s when Amish in the City came on reality TV. It was
Oh,
A plus
yeah.
TV.
There was a documentary, I want to say like in the early 2000s, and I think it was called like Welcome to Hell. And it
Mhm.
was based on the Rumspringa, which they talk a lot about in this. And pretty much, and I forget the like rules, but I think it's around like age 13 or 15 or, some in like your early teens. You kind of go off and experience the world. And the idea is like, all right, you're Amish, go see what everything else is about and then come
Yeah.
back. And it's your choice to come back or not. And if I remember right, because it's been years, but like the percentage of people that come back is like 90 or something insane, like very high. And when I say insane, just you would think, all right, you go out in the world and you see Avatar and it's like, oh, I'm never going back. But I
Yeah.
think, most of them return, which I found super fascinating. I don't know where I was going with that, but
I thought it was interesting in this movie that Eli had left several times and
mhm.
yet they kept taking him back. Whereas you could look at like the extreme Mormonisms, like the ones where they're
Yeah.
Colorado City, not like your mainstream whatever, but where they actually kick the boys out, the lost boys. They kick boys out at 13, 14, 15 because they're competition for the young girls. So
Oh.
I will say, at least with the Amish, I'm like, well, they seem to accept people back even after them breaking their ordinances or whatever.
Hmm. It's
But
definitely a loophole, right? That they get into. And I guess we can kind of start talking through the movie
yeah.
itself. And it opens up with Eli and his friend fishing, and pretty much immediately these not feds but detectives come in, and we find out that Barbara, which we is quickly revealed is Eli's wife, has been murdered in their home. And that's kind of how the movie kicks off, and the rest of it is kind of current day Eli and everyone involved being questioned by these detectives, and then kind of jumping back and seeing where this all leads up to. And kind of like you said, Eli is, and there's even a scene when he's first kind of talking to Barbara and confessing his desires for her, or however you want to put it. Um, he's kind of the misfit of the family, right? Like his father is a minister. I think his brother is, off the top of my head.
Mhm.
Like, he's kind of seen as the one that's going to follow in the footsteps, but he's strayed from the path, for lack of a better term. And even Barbara, who ends up being his wife, which is the woman who gets murdered, her sister Abigail is kind of very opposed to Barbara even interacting with her. Like, for all intents and purposes, Eli is set up as the bad boy of the Amish community.
Yeah.
Which, I didn't realize was a thing, but I guess it's got to be, right? Like,
The Jax Taylor.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then they do, around this time, they also start to mention, like, I mean, I think at one point, like, if you drank every time they said Rumspringa, like, you would have been hammered by like minute 15. But there's a lot of talk about that, kind of building it up. And then there's a lot of innuendos with Barbara and Eli about pie. And like, to, to your point, Holly, like, there is a lot more kind of sexuality or whatever the word is like thrown around in this, right?
Well,
Which yeah,
let's just get into it. Like I
yeah, please.
like I literally gasped. I had my kids were in the room watching because normally like it's fine like that they watch Hallmark or whatever,
Oh my
and then
lord.
and when he was like, he was like, submit to me. And then like
Yeah.
he shoved her again. And I was like, oh, like, oh my God. And so that's when I started Googling. I'm like, okay, like what isn't she allowed to do in that scene? Cause it was pretty obvious what they wanted to do. And I,
Yep.
and I actually like didn't go like too deep into my search, but I was like, that's interesting. And, um, yeah, just that like this guy was pissing me off with like the way he was
Oh,
talking and like just his little controlling ways. I was just like, ugh. I was
it
just like the sister. I was like, mm-mm.
100%. And you know what it does? I kept thinking of Southern Charm during this whole thing. Like it's very Shep or very like any of the men on Southern Charm, right? Like just the way they can kind of manipulate and twist things and like worm their way back in. And then not to jump too far ahead, but there are scenes where Eli leaves and comes back and like pretty much there's this loophole that if you want to get into heaven, you got to forgive because if you can't forgive, then how is God supposed to forgive you and let you in? So it's like pretty much Eli can do whatever the hell he wants and then waltz back in and be like, yeah, I'm real sorry, but if you want to get
And
into
he's
heaven,
like hyper
Mhm.
aware of that too, which is like
yep.
he's like using it as a weapon. And then just his, not to jump up far ahead either, but even
Oh, please.
in these first scenes, like he storms off and makes it seem like he's mad at her, like she just like you're a horrible wife, and takes
Oh,
off. But really, he's like going to do his little sneaky things. Well, so
yep.
she's sitting there like I'm a bad wife. It's like really he just wanted to go text. I
Yeah.
was like,
And what
Which,
does she do? She like
which,
goes to the bishop and is like, how can I make him, stop doing these things? Because this says I can't do this. Well, just be a better wife. But I was like,
right?
but
Like,
how? Like, because you're telling me I'm not allowed to do this. It's against the Bible or whatever.
yep.
But then you're also telling me to do whatever it takes to keep him happy. And like, either way, she's betraying her beliefs or her wifehood. So she
Yeah.
can't win.
yeah, that
It
was
is.
that
Yeah.
was like one of the most disturbing things to me too, was like that, like how the position she got herself in by being obedient and following the rules,
Hmm.
it was used against her, and she was like made a prisoner in her own house. Like I was like, yeah, that's
And if you
hard when you're
leave, they're going to take her kids.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're trying to follow the rules, but then you have someone who thinks they're above the rules with a family that's in power, above
Hmm.
you. Like it was, oof.
Which, by the way, that first scene where, first of all, 100% right. And it is like, it was infuriating, especially like that first half hour when we do kind of get the Eli set up, like super manipulative and like definitely uses all the quote unquote rules to his advantage. Um, but then to your point, like the kind of goofiness, that first scene where he's texting, where literally he like walks out of the room and they kind of turn and like, if Barbara had just turned to the left, like just a little
Yeah,
bit, could have seen him standing in the other room. Like
texting.
he walks like 3 feet away from her and
Yeah.
starts, kind of doing his thing.
Oh my god! Or
Um,
what about on there, like the first time where he's like, "Can I give you a ride home?" And she's like, "Hey sister, like I'm going home with him. Find your own way home." And
right?
they're like going through on a little buggy, and then he like snaps a picture of her, and she's like, "Oh, Eli, stop! Like that, you're not supposed to take photos." And he's like, "I just wanted to capture." Like he
Yeah.
manipulates her again, and and she's like, "Oh my god!" Like he thinks I'm special. I'm the one who's going to
Yep.
change him. Like,
Because she loves
oh,
those love stories too. So she's like,
yes.
it's really happening.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That threw me off because you're right. Like he has a camera in his pocket and he just kind of pulls it out. And then you're just like, what's happening? And yeah, poor Barbara, like, she just seems like the sweetest person and is trying to figure out like what the hell is happening here. And look, he even makes a line like, oh, the real sin would like not be capturing this moment, right? Or like something like that. Like he's a charmer, and
We see,
and we
yeah,
see it.
we see that happen a couple times in the movie, and each time, like I've always wanted to do like an acting exercise, like Hallmark movies, Lifetime movies. It's like they get this look where it's like I don't even know if I could do it, and I wonder how they direct them. They're like, okay, action, act like you are, it's like you have to, like, it's like a reaction shot of like this is a podcast.
Twinkle in
This
your
is a
eye, like,
Yeah, it's like, it's such a, like, they make you feel it as you're watching the
Mhm.
show. You're like, oh, it like, just like Sarah said, it's like she loves romance novels. Like, we're watching it happen for her, and you
Yep.
see it in each of the women's faces. Like, it's that
even at
the
the end with the
promise.
prison
Yeah.
commissary lady, he's like,
Yes.
"I was hoping to see you again." And she's like, "Here's your gummy bears."
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, which the other kind of thing I had a question on, and I know I could just do some research, but like, do they use refrigerators? Like, are they allowed to have refrigerators? And the reason I asked this question is because in that scene where he's
Oh.
texting, Leslie, my wife, pointed this out. There is a full turkey on that table they are having for dinner, and there's only 4 of them. There's 2 small kids, Eli and Barbara, and an entire turkey. So, like, where are the leftovers going? Like, do they have, like,
Oh.
refrigerate? There's got to be, right? Like,
Like, do you see how
milk,
hard
like, what?
she's trying to create this perfect dinner for him, and he's still not happy.
A whole turkey.
Can you use
Like,
a
what the
generator?
hell?
That's a
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Like, that's
batteries?
I I remember, like, whenever you read the Boxcar children's book, like, what is that, like, 3rd or 4th grade or something,
Mhm.
I was so obsessed with, like, they didn't have a refrigerator, and so
Be in the creek.
they saved up they got a little bit of milk, and they put their stuff in the creek, and I was like, that is so cool. Like, I want to do
Oh,
that.
yeah. Do you
That's
think
what
they're
I
just
remember
putting
too.
their, like, leftover turkeys down in the river? Just like, maybe it'll do it?
Yeah,
The
maybe.
snow. Maybe that's why they don't live like as much in the south or the desert. They need snow. That's their
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
nature's refrigerator.
It's like, of everything that happened in this movie, like, that was my question that, like, I needed
That's
answered at the
I'm
end of
gonna
the
Google
day.
that. I gotta look into that.
Um, so, to Holly's point, like, Eli's very charming, and we do kind of see him use his ways on other people, right? So I originally thought that when we kind of cut to Eli first leaving and going out and meeting, I forget who the first woman he met was.
Laura
There you go.
Kelly.
Yep. And you know what? Laura unfortunately didn't even make the IMDb page for this, which I thought was, a little offensive. But
Oh.
so he leaves and he goes out, and I think he meets her at like a bar. And I
Yeah.
assumed that was during his Rumspringa, but it's not. Like, Eli is just kind of, he gets angry with Barbara every once in a while, goes off and just lives with this woman for I don't know how long at that point, but like meets her at a bar, is drinking, doing a lot of things that he's not supposed to be.
Not seeing his kids, she
And then,
said.
yeah, he moves in with this woman like for X amount of time. I don't know if we ever find out, but like, you know, they make a big point of the fact that like Eli is this charming guy because there's, like I think 2 or 3 other women throughout this that we kind of jump back to. And then the one that, ends up being involved with all of this, and we'll kind of get into why, is Barb, the what do they call her? The taxi lady. And first of all,
Huh?
Barb and Barbara, like,
Yeah, what?
I could not, like, because when they first introduced Barb, I'm like, wait, what? Isn't that his wife?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Um, because Abigail, I think early on, and we're kind of jumping back now, but like after the detectives kind of do their work and talk to Eli, Eli's very weird during the original questioning, like doesn't even really ask about Barbara or the kids or anything. Like, he's very just kind of concerned about himself. And that's when Abigail kind of follows the detectives out and is like, I know who killed my sister. It was Eli. And like, that's, where things kind of kick off. But like, I don't know. I'm curious because I don't know if either of you did, but like, I looked up what the real Eli looks like, and they
Oh.
took some real like artistic license with their casting of Eli. Like, you know,
Really?
Oh, yes, they did.
I gotta
um,
find this.
and poor Barb. Like, so if you look at her IMDb page, lovely woman. They really like, you know, they went out of their way to make Barb look like kind of doting and like, oh, geez, Eli. Like, it was Everything kind of swirling around really just baffled me for
Yeah,
most of this.
the other like really annoying thing that kept bugging me is like he kept doing like two things to every single woman he was involved with, and
Yep.
that was one, he kept on being like, "Oh, my wife is such a
Right?
bee. You know, she's so annoying. She treats me so horribly. She's turning everyone against me. I just want to like be with my kids." And they always use that little excuse. And then
Yep.
the other like really disturbing thing that he kept doing that was bothering me was he kept on saying, "You're the only one that gets me. Like, I'm so
Yep.
glad you get it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I'm not crazy because you get it." And that would, it worked. As soon as he said that,
Yep.
the girls did that. They're like reaction face, and it worked.
Okay,
Yep.
this is terrifying.
Yep. There you go. Like,
I'm like, oh, he looks like Sasquatch or something.
he's got,
Whoa.
yeah. And
Now
I'm
I need to
curious.
see all the other real people. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
The Amish
Yeah. There's.
Stud.
Yeah.
No, on that
Right?
Amish in the City, when they were real people as a reality show, there were some really hot guys.
Yeah.
Damn. So I was expecting something more like that, not this.
Yep. And then I think the other thing that confused me, one of the other women that he ends up connecting with, and the detective's question is Tamara. And I didn't fully understand what their relationship was like, because they kind of cut to her and he's just in her house. Maybe like a handyman. I didn't quite understand, but like the way they set it up is like she wants to be with him, he wants to be with her, but like she's very adamant that like you have a wife, like I can't do this, you have kids. But then he's still like hanging out in her bed watching TV and
Yeah, they're
stuff.
like
Like,
snuggling in the bed, but I'm like, yeah.
not that I needed like more of this movie, but I needed some sort of explanation of how that got set up. And I don't know if I missed something or like what was
Yeah,
happening here, but like,
because I was like, okay, good. Like someone with morals is involved with him, where she's like putting a boundary on him of like, you can't do that. Like there was something there, but then it seemed to cross right away. I don't know. Yeah, it was confusing.
yeah, very.
Crazy
And
though. Shows how skilled he is to convince Taxi Barb who not only pays for his cell phone, but to get Tamara's on her family plan cell phone. It's like, oh god,
that
this is good.
Yeah, the other thing that I feel like they were trying to like get the message to us too in this movie was every time he left, he was never successful in taking care of himself. Like
Mhm.
that's, like when you live that way and you're taken care of on, in that community, to come to the out to the world, like you have to be able to pay your rent and pay your phone and your car. Like he didn't pay that motel bill that he lived in for a couple months. He threw
Yeah.
that away once he got to move in. So that was a big problem and a big reason why he kept on having to go back to daddy and ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of baffling. Like, I'm curious because I got to imagine there was more times that he left and came back. Like, how long this actually went on for. I would be like, after watching this, I would be interested in seeing like a real 2020 or something on
Timeline.
like this whole thing to know like what really
what
happened.
about like the other thing that really pissed me off too was like here he goes and he does all this stuff, and then he comes back to his dad, and his dad's like, okay, listen, you can ask for forgiveness. I'll get you a house and a business, and then but you have to like stay on the straight and narrow. And so
Yep.
he got a beautiful house
Mhm.
and a nice little hunting business.
Yep. Yeah. That was the whole right. Like he ran the hunting store or whatever, where you can go and buy your buckshot or whatever's happening there. And then like at one point, Barbara walks in and he's doing his thing with Barb like in the store. Funny thing is, did either of you watch the Candy Burris like Peacock movie that came out maybe like a month ago or so?
No.
So we did it for the show, and I had a couple of folks on from the Zombie Girls podcast, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I just assumed it was like a Lifetime movie. Like it was as close to Skinamax as you could possibly get. Like
Oh.
full on, like I was watching it with my wife, and I'm like, oh my god, what have I done? And then we started watching this one last night, and like there's the scene where he's like, you need to submit to me, and I'm like. And Leslie looks at me and she's like, what are you doing to people? Like, I had this like panic of like, dear God, like, I'm gonna end up on like some sort of registered list where like, come on my podcast, come on, like watch softcore porn.
Oh my god. And yeah, and then this scene in the hunting thing, like
Yeah.
Barb is she's all, oh, and they I felt like a little bad for the other Barb, because it's like, yeah, she always came off like looking so pathetic and so
Ugh.
needy. And yeah,
Okay, I have a theory that he
Yeah.
did that on purpose. That he set that up
I
because
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
none of these women were going to do it, right? They kept
Hmm.
procrastinating, putting things off. And so I think if he knew Barb was going to come in, like maybe he said, "Hey, can you bring me some tea in an hour?" Who knows? Because he wanted Taxi Barb have to them be caught, because
Yeah.
he's like, "That's it. It's done. I can't see you again. She just caught us." So Taxi Barb's going to freak out. I can never sleep with him again. I can't see
Yeah.
him again. So she's like, "Oh my gosh, well, we must change this." So to like put a fire under Taxi Barb's ass, I
Yeah.
think he did this because then now there's truly no other way.
Hmm.
Before they could be like, "Well, I don't know how to do that, or I don't have access to this." But now that it's all out there and he's not going to be able to see Taxi Barb anymore, she panicked and was like, "Okay, I guess you're right. We have to do it."
Yeah. Because I think at that point he had brought up murdering his wife to Barb,
Hmm.
and she was obviously apprehensive. And then Tamara, he brought it up to like pretty much anyone for about a 15-minute span of this movie that he came in contact with. He was like, "Hey, we should murder my wife, right? Like, let's do that." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's weird. You're kidding, right?" And he's like, yeah, obviously we wouldn't do that. But then, yeah, to your point, when Barbara catches him and Barb, his immediate reaction is like, "Well, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Unless,
Created a sense of
um,
urgency.
yeah." So yeah, it's valid. Like either he set that up or just he is such a manipulator that his like split reaction is like, "All right, how do I turn this into something I can use?"
Mhm.
Because even, Barb is on board at this point. She's like, "Okay, yes, I need to be with you, so let's do this." And we get these scenes of her and Eli in Barb's house, and Eli's like, "Oh, Google this, like Google how to murder someone," right?
oh,
Like it was so blatant that he was making sure all this stuff was on her computer and her phone. And like, and again, he's Amish, so he doesn't have a computer. So it's, super easy for him to get that across. But it's just like, you're watching this and like, come on, Barb, like you've watched an episode of CSI, right? Like, this isn't good.
Yeah, what
Um,
year was this?
that I don't know. And I actually meant to
Well,
look up too.
he got 15 years and he's eligible for parole in 24.
So it
Like,
must have been like the early 2000s, right? Well,
yeah,
because he's using like one of those the phone has like the keyboard, like what
the
do they call it?
BlackBerry, like, yeah,
a
Yeah.
sidekick.
sidekick.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah, so early 2000s. Yeah,
Yeah.
mid. Yeah.
So yeah, so Barb's on board with killing his wife at this point. And we didn't even talk about Barb is also married. And
Oh,
the
that poor
only thing
guy.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, the only thing that made Barb look like she was, a go-getter was Barb's husband, who just
Well,
so
there's it's this other true story, and it was a Lifetime movie, and now there's another Lifetime movie, but about the same thing, but different prison guard. But the one coming up is a prison guard. The one before was a lady that taught sewing or something in prisons, and she broke two men out, and under the same delusion that she loved them, but she had a husband, and it was just like this guy. They're like,
oh,
"Whoa."
so
Didn't
that
have
was
any clue.
I forget the town, but upstate New York, not far
Yes,
from where
it
I grew
was.
up. And yeah, that was like big news that,
Yeah.
yeah, it was two men, right? Like
Uh-huh.
she broke them
One
out.
got
Yeah.
shot, and then the one, it was like the elements. They finally caught him, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And then there's the Vicky White one that comes out on Lifetime in a couple weeks, and that's the one that was more recent, like last year, where
oh,
they ended up. I think he didn't die, but he either killed her or she killed herself because she had him on the run. It was for like 3 weeks or something, and
I
we were all
remember that one. Yeah.
yeah.
lifetime. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
then
this lady's husband was just like Barb. So anyway, sorry.
No, because it's valid, and not to jump too far ahead. And I guess this is a spoiler, but I mean it's a true story, and you can kind of know everything before you even start watching the movie. But like, he convinces Barb to kill his wife. Barb does. They kind of plan like at one point they're going to try sleeping pills. At one point they're going to try something else,
Blow up his
and
children and he didn't care.
oh my god, that scene.
He's
Oh,
like, "Oh, they'll
like
go to heaven early." It's like,
yeah, right. Like, because he tries to convince Barb to blow up the house, and she's like, "With the kids at home," and he's like, "Well, they'll go right to heaven. Like, it's fine." Like, that's when, and
it's fine.
that's where I'm always wondering, like, did that really happen? Like, did he really say that? Which it wouldn't surprise me based on what we're getting from this, but it's like, oh, like, um, so
Yeah.
he convinces Barb to kill his wife. Eventually, she shoots him with or shoots her with a shotgun. And as this is all starting to come out, and eventually they trace things back to Barb, and the detectives are figuring everything out. There's a scene where they go to Barb's house and her husband is there, and the detectives go in and are like, she's under arrest, like things are going bad. And like the husband's reaction is just like, Eli, they're such good friends. Why would she do that? And it's like, come
Yeah.
on, buddy. Like,
That was so
piece it
clueless.
together. Like, it was heartbreaking because he was so naive, and like you're just like,
Yeah. They did
Barb.
get her on the texts and the computer searches,
Yeah.
but the confession, I mean, and unless this was fictionalized for the movie, but it's pretty clear that confession should have been thrown out because she
Hmm.
said, "I think I need a lawyer. Can I have a lawyer?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can have a lawyer, but first you need to answer some questions." And it's like,
Yeah.
no, once she said that, game over. And they pulled that out of her, but they did have the other evidence, so she
Yeah.
would have got it either way, but I thought that was a little trickery.
Wait,
So
what
that's
was
good.
it? What
Yeah.
was the other evidence?
Well, they had her text messages, at 3 in the morning. He's like, "Remember
Hmm.
to take a light with you." She's like, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do, like of their dialogue, and
Yeah.
then to her computer searches, which
Yeah.
shouldn't be enough either. The computer searches. I
I
often Google that.
have like a little question in my mind. Like I don't maybe I don't know. Like did she do it? Like did
Well,
she really
that's kind of what I wanted to get into, because like they get arrested. He gets arrested for like conspiring, or like whatever the term is. She gets arrested for the actual murder, and they go on trial. And the whole thing kind of plays out with Eli going on the stand and pretty much confessing, because we get this that he takes a plea deal, right? Like, and he tells his whole story, and his story is that like she crept into the house and killed Barb while he was out hunting or fishing or whatever. So like his story is like, yes, I plotted this with her, but like she did the actual killing. And Barb's defense is like, no, like we plotted it together, but he did the killing. And that's where it's kind of left, right? Like we don't know for sure, because Barb, and they even say at the end, like still adamantly says like she didn't do the
Well,
actual shooting.
and he was so aggressive with his Mennonite friend to get him to
Yep.
give his alibi of seeing Barb alive. That's like,
Yep.
well, why would you even care? Because if you didn't do it, that would be a moot
Yep.
point.
Which, by
So
the way,
yeah.
that one scene where the detectives are like, Mennonites love to gossip. I was like, is that a thing? Do people know that? Like, they had this breakthrough. Where like, we got to go talk to the Mennonites. Those guys love a good gossip sesh,
Just give him a milkshake.
right?
Yeah.
How like heartwarming it was. Like, oh, we'll get everything out of them if we give them a milkshake, and it's like, and it worked. It 100% worked. Um, so yeah, I mean, to your point, Holly, I don't know. Like they kind of leave you feeling like, all right, Barb probably got screwed over in this, which in in
It
any case
yeah,
she
it's just
did.
like
Yeah.
his pattern of lying, and then the way she looked so shocked when he came in with the plea deal, like she was like, "A plea deal? Like for what?" Like
Yeah.
it honestly that seemed like it was the knife like to her chest, not in her back, right to her face, and she had to sit there while he laid the perfect case out to
Yeah.
blame her. And
Like she should have had the plea deal.
Yes.
you
And
know.
she,
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
yes. But she still, and then like he said something where he was like, yes, we were in love. And she reacted still like, oh. And then he
Uh,
just like, boom, he's like, but she did it all. So, and then when she was found guilty and she was like,
right?
just like so upset. And so,
Yeah.
and then her husband gets up and walks
Oh,
out. And then his family walks out. Also, like the look on Eli's
Because it was
face
easier.
when his family exited, like, I don't want to say I saw a sense of relief on his face, but I felt it was something. It was
yeah. There.
like he was kind of okay. He's like, I'm gonna live in jail now, and I'll just like dominate this area now.
Yeah, he'll do what he needs to do. You're right. There was a lot of scenes where like he almost seemed like jovial or something. Like
Yeah,
he was not affected by this in any way. And even when he comes in and is, taking the plea deal and kind of laying everything out, like he just seems very lighthearted about it. And yeah, then there is the question like, why didn't you just divorce your wife? He's like, this seemed easier because there is like this running theme throughout where like all these women that he's seeing are saying like you need to divorce her and then we can be together, and he's like, well, then I lose the house, I lose the kids, I'm excommunicated. Like it's this whole thing, and he sees, at least in his eyes, that like she needs to go, and that's the only way I can really kind of get out of this. So like, yeah,
and
yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
that's where the whole thing kind of crumbles too. Of um how religion works sometimes, where it's
Mm,
like you have all of these things that you have to do, and if you don't fit in perfectly to that, then you're like shunned. So
yeah,
he felt so out of place where he was, that his only option was to murder this woman, when
yeah,
if his family or anyone had listened to Barb,
Barb,
killed Barb, they would have fixed it. But
yeah,
because of all their rules and everything, like they didn't see it. So her sister was right when she was like, we have all failed her. It's like, it's true,
Yeah.
yeah,
you did.
yeah.
I
And it
wonder.
is very sad because like Barbara, at one point she's going to like a therapist outside of the community, and like he's the first one that kind of listens to her, convinces her to like keep a journal of like everything Eli is doing, which is eventually what
Smart.
they find, and kind of unravels everything. Like it's just, you really feel for Barbara in this because like even she gets to a point where she's just like, Eli can't take this away from me. Like I'm kind of stuck in this situation, but like I'll just do what I need to do and enjoy my time when he's away. And it's like, you really, it's interesting because usually a lot of times, especially in these Lifetime movies, like it's a little goofy and you kind of laugh, but like Barb at a certain point I was just like, oh man, like I
Oh,
really felt for her. Yeah, yeah, go
I
ahead.
remember something else. Sorry. What about like it's time for the murder to happen, and
Mhm.
he's setting everything up, and he comes in and he's like kind of lurking around. She's sleeping, and then like
Oh,
right as he's laid down, she opens her eyes. Like
yep.
she was very aware of him. So like I wish they would have shown like exactly, like obviously they can't because they didn't know, but it's like, was she like, did she wake up before she was shot? Like, because she was
Yeah.
kind of aware of what was going on.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think she suspected that he would go this far, but like
Yeah.
it is, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like that's where it really gets like tugs at your heartstrings because at a certain point Barb just becomes aware like this is the situation I'm in. I don't see a way out, but I
Maybe if I
will,
do this log,
yeah,
maybe that will
Hmm.
help.
I'll
One more
make the
chance at
best
the
of it.
bishop.
And the
Yeah.
Right.
log, yeah,
Yeah.
the log seemed to really give her power, like her power back.
Hmm.
Like her sister is even like, you seem different. And I think just yeah, documenting what was happening, like she took back that, because she was like, okay, like you're gonna be a dick again. Like here we go, I'm writing it
Yeah.
down. You know.
Because yeah, I forgot about that, Sarah. The whole thing was this needed to happen on like Tuesday because Wednesday she was going to go and bring the log now to the minister, and like because he's the one that said like you just need to be a better wife, and she was saying like I have this book of like awful things he's done, like you can't ignore this, like,
Yeah.
and it is like it really makes you feel for her.
Yeah, that he would be exposed, so it needed the
Yeah.
urgency. Yeah. Do
The
you
other
guys think that the sense of relief when his family left? Because I'm wondering, where's he going to go? He gets out next year, possibly.
It's
Are they going
interesting,
to
yeah.
take him back again, or is this relief like, you know what? They showed his Amish Stud profile, all the ladies, in
Yeah.
prison. He's probably got some prison groupies. Like he's probably like, I can get with any lady I want. Is that the relief? And then he's like, and now I can be as bad as I want. Or I'm
Now
just
with
curious
this
if they'll
movie,
take
he's
it
probably
back.
going to have a lot more letters coming to him, like
Yeah. Well, that is the weird
that's
thing, right?
that's
Because
interesting.
the way it wraps up, he's in jail, and we mentioned it before, but like there's this scene where I don't know what they call it, but like the guard that pretty much gives out the rations based on what you have in your bank account and stuff. Like he has nothing, but he wants some candy, and he kind of sweets talks this woman, and eventually she gives him some like gummy bears or something, and like you're like, oh, he's doing this whole
Working
thing
out.
in prison now, right? And then we kind of get the flashes of Barb saying, she still, is adamant that she did not actually pull the trigger. And then we find out Eli is due for parole or to be released in 2024. Like I I like gasped when I saw that pop up,
Yes.
Me
Even
too. I was
hers
Uh,
like,
was 23 years to life. Well, it's like that's
yeah.
pretty vague. His was 15 years. And then with
Yeah.
parole, if it's state, I think you only have to do 75%.
Mm,
Like if it's federal, you do 90%, but it's already been 15 years anyway. So even if he does the full 15, whoop de doo.
yeah, I am super interested to see like cuz now I kind of want to follow this and see like what happens when he does get out and like where we go from here.
Maybe because of this movie, people will go to the court or the parole hearing and like,
Mm,
no, you know,
I don't know. I don't know if this is the movie that's going to really like raise
maybe
attention.
Abigail will. She'll do the victim impact
Yeah,
statement.
I hope so. But
like
yeah, I
I
think
wonder if other prisoners have told him about like OnlyFans, because like maybe he would be
oh,
really good on, because the
Oh,
ladies
Amish
love
Stud.
him. And then people
yeah.
can give him tips, and like that would be a great platform for him.
Yeah, oh, for sure. The only other thing, and this has nothing to do with the actual storyline, but I thought it was hilarious that it did not fit this movie at all, but anytime there was like a big reveal or it happens in the courtroom when Eli comes out and they say like he took a plea deal, there's almost like this telenovela like music that starts playing. It's just like a guitar like ding, and I'm just like, what? Like, why in an Amish movie like is this happening? Like I expected someone to like walk out from scene and like, Senor, you're in trouble. Like it just threw me off and I kind of loved
Well,
it.
the
That's
opening
funny.
song was very gothy. It was like, "The
Right?
devil takes your soul."
It
Yeah.
was, yeah. I don't know. I am so happy that I stumbled upon this and like message you both were watching it. Like it all worked out great.
Yes.
So I don't know anything else we should hit on this. Otherwise, I think we kind of touched on everything I had notes on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Uh
we need to touch base next year. We need to keep
oh,
tabs on his parole.
I maybe there'll be a follow-up movie, who knows. Speaking of not related at all, did you all and Holly, because I think we watched the same version, got the Murdaugh? I forget. I
I've
never know how
watched
to
all of
pronounce it.
it.
So
Every channel, every documentary, everything.
there's a Lifetime movie coming about it. Like I feel like in the next month or so.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I'm very
I don't
excited.
know how they can fit all that into one movie. There's so many
Maybe it'll be a
elements.
two-parter.
It's
Yeah.
like a lifetime of corruption. you
It's
know?
Yeah.
yeah. We have not what we watched the first Netflix series, but we have not watched the follow-up that just came out, but yeah.
Yeah, I just watched that one. And then there's ones on Dateline and
Mhm.
there's so many of them now, but they're all good. And each one you learn something new. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's sad.
All right, so that's Amish Stud, the Eli Weaver story. The important question, and I don't know how you answer this one, but you're happily ever after. Who from this cast or from all these characters in here, who do you think if you had to spend the rest of your life with one of these folks, like who do you pick? Do you go with Barb's husband just because he seems like a real nice guy, or like where do you
No,
go from here?
the Mennonite fisherman.
Yeah,
Oh, I was
He
going
had
to
a
that's
say
moral
that too.
he had a
yeah,
moral compass. He wasn't gonna lie. He cared.
yeah,
I was going to
yeah,
say that, or the sister. Like
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I agreed with like a lot of the stuff she said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Abigail, I think. I don't know. I assume I would have to join the Amish community, and I don't think I could handle that. But yeah. Abigail, by all means, like far and away the one with her head on their shoulder in
There's
this entire thing.
a lot of I've never watched, but I know people that have like on cable. What I don't know if it's on Lifetime or what if it's on the Amish Mafia. Like it just talks
Mm.
about the corruption within the Amish community. There is kind of like a built-in mafia. Like a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
stuff goes down, a lot of cover-ups. So I'm like, I've never gone that far. Like I said, I've been interested. I've watched certain things, but I've never committed to the whole like dark reality of it. So
yeah.
now I'm kind of a little more interested in
It is.
that.
It's super because I didn't even remember. I went to college in Philly, which was like '99, I think, and I remember there being a big case there that it was like a community, like 2 or 3 guys in the Amish community were like selling cocaine, like out of like their little Amish area, like, and like they were on trial. Like you always find this stuff that's kind of going on, and I mean, it happens everywhere, honestly, but like I think when it happens with the Amish, because they are seen as just like this pure, like anytime you find out about this stuff, it's like fascinating in a kind of sick way.
Yeah.
um, all right. So Amish Stud, thumbs up, thumbs down. Holly?
I give it a thumbs up. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It was a little out of my realm of what I would normally watch, but I mean, it took me the whole way through. So thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep, for
True
sure. Yeah.
story.
Sarah?
True story. Can't go wrong with that.
Yep. All right, awesome. So that is Amish Stud, the Eli Weaver story. Next year he's out, so we'll see what happens from there.
Maybe we should
Um,
write Barb. Oh, maybe
where's
I'll write Barb.
that's I do kind of want to know like where Barb is now and like what her
I'll
deal
find out.
is. Yeah,
I'll write her.
Let's get her on your podcast.
Yes.
maybe. All right, smalltownfailingpodcast at gmail.com. You can get links to smalltownfailingpodcast.com. You can get links to all the Twitters and the socials and all that fun. One question we got from this week, and I don't know if it's like a full-on question or just, everything. Heather, our good friend Heather, said, yeah. So it's funny, I use Time Hop because I'm old and I just like to see things that have happened in my past. I just got the other day where Heather and I met in person for the first time and just like warmed my heart. I think it was like 9 or 10 years ago at this point. I'm assuming
Wow.
you have met Heather at this point, right?
Yeah, she
Many
doesn't come
times,
out
yeah.
like she used to, but we've met her in Kentucky. When we covered the castle wedding, she
Oh,
came with
yes.
us. She came out to California for a premiere party, and
I know
we went to
COVID
the
has
Quiet Woman.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
COVID has ruined our Heather time, but hopefully
Yeah.
we'll see her soon.
Nice. Yeah. Heather's amazing. Like back when, so we talked about it when you guys were on the first time, but like we had kind of met through Evan, who's been on the show a bunch. We used to have a Housewives podcast, and
Yes.
Heather was like a huge supporter, and we kind of met through that. And she's always been amazing.
Yeah.
So love Heather. She's an
She
amazing
brings us
person.
all together.
Right? Like
Yeah.
just, and she's so like passionate and just kind of makes you feel good about what you're doing, So,
Totally.
It's just so nice, like when someone like listens to your podcast and like either they'll add into a conversation or it's like you listen to the whole thing. That's so nice,
100%. Yes. Yeah. I think, and because she was for like our first kind of like, Adam, it's not the right word, but like fan. And we were like, oh, that's
interactive, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So Heather said, I don't know, it's not even really a question, but I clearly need to take an Amish living class because I thought they grew/harvested all their food, not go to the supermarket. And Eli is allowed to ride around with his taxi woman. They don't believe in cars. So how is that allowed? So I think just kind of like questions around like the logistics of things, because I think a lot of people feel like they just farm and like everything's kind of contained, but like there's a scene where like Barb can't afford to buy groceries because Eli's out like paying for Tamara's, rent and things like that. Like it is interesting because you do, with all the kind of craziness going on, you do get a little insight into like the Amish way of life. Whereas, they can go to the grocery store. They just need to get a ride. And like, pretty much I think, Sarah, you said it earlier, like they can kind of benefit from a lot of this stuff. They just can't like be the ones doing it.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
And I think even buying groceries, so their businesses have to be, for each other, but they can sell to the general public if it's like made the way they would make things all
Yeah.
throughout time. Then they get money because that's what, we non-Amish have to give them as cash. So then they have to use that cash somewhere. So then they can get it, the food that they
Yeah.
don't grow or whatever. So it's all interesting because like, well, that food is
Mhm.
in an electric grocery store,
Yeah.
like how far do you take it? But you
I
know,
did find it interesting too that apparently they refer to everyone that isn't Amish as English, which made me, just not being Amish, feel like a fancy lad. Like I kind of enjoyed that. Like, oh, top of the morning to you,
English,
Eli.
son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chip chip chiroo, Eli. Um, so what's going on with everything that you all have going on? Vanderpump Rules Party podcast. The next episode, I saw you're covering Dancing with the Stars. You're covering, like, again, I think we kind of talked about the top. It is amazing to me how, like, anything anyone from the show touches, you both are kind of on top of, and like literally will release like emergency episodes, like when Scandival broke. It's like you formed
We were
like
there when it
two,
broke,
yeah,
so we had to.
like, wait, what? No, go on.
Yeah, we were at
Like,
Tom Tom. We had already said hello to Tom and Ariana, and yeah,
I don't know why I didn't
Joe.
realize this. Get out of here.
Yeah, it
And
was
then we
Wow.
were at his
crazy.
first show when it became so that was we were there Wednesday, but it was made known to the world on Friday. Well, we already
Mhm.
had tickets to his show in Anaheim on Friday, which we would have probably bailed, but we had
Mhm.
a listener coming in from South Carolina and came in early for this. So we're like, well, we're not going to bail on this person. So I
Yeah.
guess we'll go and report on. And so this is when James is like, everyone bring tomatoes and throw them at
Yeah.
Sandwell. And we're like, okay, well, that's assault. So Holly brought like, cards of Ariana's headshot picture. So
Oh,
we
I remember this.
kind
Yeah, I
of did
remember seeing the
that.
pictures.
And but yeah, so it's like we were kind of at both places the day it broke
Yeah,
and then the day it happened.
and that's really when our podcast like blew up from
Oh,
Scandal
yeah.
too. I would like that. So even though we didn't want to go support him, like it like a couple of
It
the
worked
things that
out.
we went to, Sarah and I were like, should but yeah,
Yeah.
we had a listener in town and stuff. So, but it really worked out.
Oh, for sure.
And the
Yeah. No.
shows we gone before when we ended up capturing footage that we didn't know would be important footage at the time turned out to be golden footage that went viral. But because we did muscle through these shows we didn't want to go to, it paid off later. We just didn't know it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
With
remember
Michelle and
even
him.
because, what is it? Ariana was working at was it a Cane's Chicken? Like, I think she was kind of doing a guest there, and like you two were on like your car, and like it is amazing. Or yeah, Holly, I think it was right. Like it is just amazing how you two find your way into these things. Like,
That was like the most frustrating event that I've ever attended that was having anything. Usually like I can get in there and get the exclusive. I was there early, I was there on time, my car was decorated, and I did
yeah.
not get that money shot. But it was fun being there. And for the first episode of Dancing with the Stars, my kids were like, let's get canes, because like the marketing literally worked. They thought of Ariana, they thought
Mhm.
of canes, and they wanted to watch her on Dancing with the Stars. So I'm like, I thought that whole like partnership was a waste of time. I was
Yeah.
like, no one cares that Ariana's eating canes, but it worked on my
They
kids. So
brainwashed your children.
yeah,
Oh my
I
That's
was
so
God.
like, oh
funny.
my god,
Well, that
Wow.
dipping sauce is delicious.
it
Like
is
it's very good. So here's and I think I've told it before because Evan and I have talked a lot about canes too. My wife, for I want to say like 6 months, we were driving in our car and the Canes just opened here like maybe a year ago, and is the first one we had in the area. And we're driving by and there's a sign and she's like, "Oh, Michael Caine's chicken place is opening up." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Yeah, Michael Caine,
Yeah.
the actor, he owns that chain. It's not even spelt the same way.
Right.
It's not like it's obviously not his." But she said it with such conviction and we're driving and I'm just like, "All right." And then just never brought it up again. And then like 6 months later, this place opens and I'm like, it's really weird that like Michael Caine owns this. And she just starts cackling hysterically. She kept this going for like 6 months. and had me convinced that Michael Caine owned this chain.
Was this English guy and fried chicken? Like,
Yeah.
how does that
And I'm
go
just like,
together?
that doesn't make not even fried chicken, like chicken strips. Like,
Strips.
Yeah.
why would Michael Caine have anything to do with this? And like, literally, I know she's listening to this right now.
And Texas toast.
Yeah, I know she is cackling and laughing at me hysterically, like as she listens to
I
this. But it's
love
like,
when you can pull something off like that on someone. It's the funniest thing when you.
it was like, I'm just like, what else is a lie? Like, are we married? Are these my kids? Like, what is happening? Like, for like months, just had me sitting there thinking,
What
like,
else is a lie?
and like, I could have been off at work, like telling people, like, yeah, Michael Caine owns this chicken place. Like, she had no idea. Like, I could have gotten fired for sounding
Yeah.
like a lunatic. Like, you never know. But anyway,
That's funny.
it is delicious. All right. Where can everyone find your episodes, your Instagram, all that sort of fun? Plug away.
Go ahead.
You want to take it? I'll take it. Okay, yeah, you guys can find us Vanderpump Rules Party. We're on every platform for podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram. We really update there on all of our social media stuff, and we're doing a ton this month. We're going to BravoCon. We're going to Jax's villain premiere. So we should Lala's live show. So yeah, and you can email us anytime, vanderpumprulesparty@gmail.com. We always write back. We always comment. So, and we have a Patreon too.
Yeah. So patreon.com/Vanderpump Rules Party. Patreon, you probably know. So many people have trouble, myself included, trying to find things on there. So just keep trying, or message if you have trouble.
Or message us. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that villain show? Because I'm optimistic, but I'm curious, like, how long I'll like stay interested. Because what's it? I Love New York. Isn't she on it? Tiffany.
Yeah, and Omarosa.
Yeah, and
Johnny Bananas. Some people I don't know. I've never watched Johnny Bananas, but I hear his name. Yeah, some people I know and some people I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a great show. It's going to be like a Surreal Life or a show on Wii or something like that. But
which, by the way,
I just want to tune in. Like, I think the whole Jax thing has just been crazy. How he was, like his fall from grace to where we are now, where he's going to be on a new show. He's on this villain show. He's back on Vanderpump Rules. He has this bar. And I'm kind of just like, I guess this is like kind of rude to say, but who cares? It's Jax. Like, I'm excited to see if he can keep this facade up, because I know that's what it is.
Can.
He's
I don't
doing
think he can.
And that's what I'm like. It's like, show me that, and then I'm in.
Yeah.
He already slips up.
Yeah. Well, this is what I've always joked with Leslie and others. Like, the whole Sandoval Ariana thing is awful, and he's a huge dick. But there are a lot of people who have said, like, everyone on that show is cheated with everyone on that show, and at the root of it, they're 100% right. But if Jax is back on TV and I have to watch him, that's what I'm most upset with Tom about. Like, the fact that he gave him this platform, and like, because I cannot stand him. Like, I have disliked him from day one. I still want my chunky sweater line that he was supposed to come out with, and it's just never happened. But like, he's just an awful human being.
I mean, there was a moment, I think people, their eyes are open now, but there's a moment for a month or two where, like, Jax, the voice of reason, Jax, look how much he's changed. He's like, no, his publicist is saying, tweet this, it'll really change your image. And then when he started getting jobs because of it, I think he realized, I need to listen to her because she's getting me jobs because of this image change. But then he'll still slip up on a tweet or two when it's himself doing it. He'll still be like, shut up, you troll. And then like, oops, I mean, it's still him.
For how many years he was on that show, and like, not that people can't change, but Jax is not going to change. Like, Jax is Jax, and he will always be Jax. And but anywho, thank you both so much for coming on. Super fun.
Always
thank you for watching this movie. And we'll I don't know what next time we're gonna be watching, but it'll be, just delightful. Ariana is coming out with a Lifetime movie, right? Like, and I think soon, right?
2 weeks, I think.
We probably should have planned this better, but instead we did the Amish Stud.
That's
Sure, there'll
okay.
be yeah, we were happy to talk about it with you. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that will too.
Yeah.
I don't know how big her role is, but I did see the
Yeah.
preview and I thought she's beautiful, and then she's in this cop uniform. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't
Right.
know how realistic this is, and it reminded me of watching it was like one of Randall's movies that Lala was in, and she played
Oh.
like a Southern sheriff,
Mhm.
and she had like this fleeting accent that went from like English to Georgia to like her regular Lala voice, and I'm like, I it's not believable that you're a sheriff, okay? It was so
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid, and Ariana will be a much better actress than Lala, no doubt, but it was still like, "This is your casting? Like, this bombshell?"
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I've got to imagine it was very like, all right, she's in the spotlight. This is huge now. Like, let's just get her in something.
stick her in
And like,
something.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But again, thank you both so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And
Thank
yeah, I
you.
think that'll do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
We'll talk to you next time. All right.
Alright,
Bye everyone.
Bye.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye. How do I
There it goes.